sanctify you holy.
Thank you all for tuning in tonight. It's our third, oh no, it's our fourth live, IG live or video recording. But I've been doing this series throughout the month of November, hopefully introducing everyone to, the possibility of Alfreda cinema, and you really just talking about the importance of having a black owned arts video music space here in Brooklyn. And as you all know, I've mentioned before that I would love to be in Brownsville. Fingers crossed, I think I found the space. So, if we can, raise the funding that we need, then we could hopefully be there very soon. But tonight's guest, I'm so excited to have two amazing, wonderful selectors, DJs, however folks like to describe themselves, but just people sharing absolutely beautiful music. Music is such an important aspect, I think, of not just for Alfreda Cinema, but in talking about the context of nightlife and cinema being a huge part of nightlife. I think having those conversations between music and film is really just a beautiful marriage. So, and as you all know, I've been working on a music series out in Rockaway. We're going to have some events out there. Actually, Ryan's going to join me in Rockaway next weekend, so hopefully y'all can come out for that. If it's not too far, but it's definitely worth the ride. And then Hyena's also going to join us tonight. She's just running a little bit late, but she should be here shortly. But also, tonight's event actually, it took a team, so it's not just me here. We have Jasiel in the room, we have Mari, we have Valentine in the room. And then later on, after our discussion, we're going to speak about, or actually, I'm sorry, I promised you music. We're talking about music, but I promised you music as well. So we're going to speak and spin once, once our conversation is done. But, yeah, so I got it all out.
Thank you.
Again, my name is Melissa Lyde, and I just want to introduce Ryan Zucker, who will be spinning with me at the end of, or next week actually, on the 18th of November, and then DJ Scribe, who is a wonderful DJ, and the two of them are wonderful friends. So why don't you all say hello to our crowd?
Hello, everybody. I'm Ryan. I'm Ben. My DJ name is Scribe, but my real name is Ben.
I'm just gonna keep calling you Scribe.
They're both my real names. But one is a self-given.
How did you get that name?
Scribe? Well, you sure you want?
Yeah, I want to know, cause it's so funny as we talk about cause I mentioned that Ryan's a newcomer, even though he's been spinning for 6 years. But it's so funny the dynamics of newer DJs versus veterans. And newer DJs don't necessarily go by nicknames anymore. So
True.
I am curious about how you got that name.
True.
Are you a writer?
I am one of those old school DJs with a nickname.
That's beautiful though. That's
yeah,
beautiful.
It's funny how those kind of aesthetic things change. I am a writer, but it didn't really come from that. I mean, it is related to writing, obviously. But what it was that, I started DJing in 1990.
Mm-hmm.
And even before that, I was always making music from when I was a kid, but then I got really into hip hop and I started making hip hop beats and producing. And then when I went to college, I had a friend who was also into a lot of the same music I was in, and we decided to form a hip hop duo. But we were both just making beats. Neither of us was really an MC, but we had this dream that we would just develop into that we were going to make the music and then write lyrics to it, which we did a little bit. But so I actually gave myself that name initially more as this MC that I was not really yet. It was an aspirational MC name basically, and the Scribe part had more to do with writing the words. But I just found that I was much more into making beats than writing lyrics, which makes sense because even when I listen to music, a lot of the time I hardly even hear the lyrics. It's not really the same with hip hop, but I'm always more like the music draws me in more than lyrics.
I feel like that's the thing about men and women DJs. And apparently, like women love to play more lyrical tracks versus men who enjoy playing more instrumentals. Do you think that's true?
I don't know I don't know if that's true overall, but that's definitely not true about me. I mean, it's weird because it sounds contradictory, but even though when I listen to music, I'm listening more to the music. When I play music, I definitely play a lot of lyrical music, and I'm also a lot of the times I'll even be influenced by just like telling a story with like the titles of songs and things like that, like just sort of like working that meaning into like a bigger picture. I'm probably more into lyrical music than instrumental. It's just that when I listen to lyrical music, it's the music that draws me in first. Like chord changes, melody, arrangements is what is like moving me on the deepest level, and then the lyrics are enhancing that.
It's beautiful. I mean, I'm sure our audience would love to follow you and, maybe come to some of your parties. What would be the best way for us to kind of stay connected to your next events?
Probably my Instagram, which I'm not particularly active on, but I do post usually when I have gigs. I post. I just don't bother posting like what I'm having for breakfast in between the gigs.
That's wonderful. I don't do that, by the way.
All the like social media strategists will tell you like you can't just post. You can't just promote. You have to like
live through the camera.
Yeah,
no, it's so.
I just really couldn't be bothered. So, but anyway, my Instagram is at DJ Scribe.
There you go, at DJ Scribe, and also be sure to follow Ryan on Trippers Delight.
At Trippers Delight.
Okay, so like, it's so funny because I was drafting an email, or I was working on a flyer for our event, and I was like, Trippers Delight, perfect for you, like who you are, and how, just how much we have fun out and about and everything. But how did you, is that your DJ name, or?
It's not, I haven't really decided actually, I don't know if it is.
Mm-hmm.
I created the name with a friend of mine who we DJ together with, and it's kind of connected to not like canoe tripping really, because we used to take canoe trips together. Out on canoe trips, we would say like, "This is a tripper's delight. This beautiful view," or "This meal we cooked over a fire is a tripper's delight."
So nothing to do with drugs?
Not really, no. I mean, it also, can be, sure. But it's not. That's not the origin.
Right. Well, so we've been out a lot. I have to say, and I would love for both of you to kind of reflect on how you feel like the nightlife community exists nowadays. Is there a community still? I mean, what do you think about that? Like, is there like a sort of is it like the same utopic feeling that people kind of glamorize from like Days in Paradise Garage or The Loft, or what do you feel like New York City nightlife, like that vibe is these days?
Well, I would say there's definitely a community of music lovers and dancers and DJs that you see around if you go to parties and events that are related. Dance music. I feel like I found the community eventually. It took me a little while, but now I feel like there is certainly a community, and I'm a part of it. But initially, if you're just going to concerts or events, DJ gigs and parties, you may not know that there is a community.
I don't know. I guess I feel like when I'm out, I don't know how you feel about this, Scribe, but I guess when I'm out, and I gotta say, everybody in this room I met through just going out, going to the clubs and whatnot, going to hearing similar music, or DJs rather. But every time I go out, it's fully always a new crowd. I don't recognize like half of the people. And then when I do see people I know, it's really like 5 or 10 of us on the dance floor who, commit to these people or these DJs, this venue. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, that sounds right. I think like unless you're going to a kind of a party that's really 100% like organized around the idea of community, like where it's like a member party and like it's all the same people that go back every time, and you're going like, you know, if it's like a weekly thing or a monthly thing and you're going every time, there might be like a bigger percentage of people there that feel like the community. But I think in most places, you know, there's a combination of that sort of, and there's probably not just one, you know what I mean? It's like there might be the people we know, then there are probably some other people who like know each other who we don't know, who when they go out they see each other and they're like, oh, this is my community. I don't know, but I think like there's a certain kind of, I don't know if we're like in the core community, but we're in some kind of community that relates to certain types of music, definitely like more kind of like deep, far-reaching stuff that like people who are into house and techno and whatever, but are also into like spiritual jazz and free jazz and like super open-minded about music, and will also go to like a listening event that isn't dance music at all. And there is a community around that that's, you know, it's multi-generational. It's like, and when you go out to certain things, like there will be some people from that community that you'll recognize there, but then there'll also just be like random people that find out it or think it's cool to go to that thing or whatever, you know. So
You know, I guess I asked that question because now when I'm going out, what I see largely are like people on their phones out. You know, when I
Yeah.
was going out, I started going out when I was like 19, 18, maybe even younger. If you want to count Empire Skate Rink, shout out skaters. Um, but you know, and there, like we would go and you know you were going to see your friends. Like you would, it was more about going to see who was there versus the DJ who was playing. Because really, like that was kind of like just, I don't know. It wasn't the focus wasn't on the DJs, and I feel like nowadays, you know, everyone focuses on the DJ as if it's like a concert, and not a lot of people really are dancing. Like, you see me out. I post videos of myself, you know, getting pumped. But so I guess for me, it feels like there's less of that like neighborhoody vibe. You know, like less of the engage with who's there versus the DJ who's spinning. And I am a little, you know, disappointed sometimes, especially since, like, you know, the community that we kind of circulated is not as diverse as one would wish it to be. I'm not gonna lie, largely, you know, it's a lot of, like, you know, mixed white people, really. And I'm not saying that, like, that's a bad thing necessarily, but I feel like it kind of dominates the room's tone. Like some people might not feel comfortable to sort of be more expressive in terms of dancing. Maybe they feel like they don't have any rhythm. It's really not about rhythm either. It's just about, you know, feeling free and stretching your body. Because even when I go to parties like the Shelter and there's like white people up in there, it's like it's not ever like the people who go there. It's never bad time, you know. Sometimes, but all the time. You know, like the vibe is different. What do you think about that? There's the lack of diversity on the dance floor, and, you know.
I think it sucks. I hate it. You know, I've been around in New York long enough that to see that change, and at least in the spaces that I've been in, of course,
because you probably was like the only white guy out in the hip hop parties.
Definitely, I've been in many like spaces where I was the only white guy, but also been in a lot of parties that were felt like really truly diverse, like in every way, you know, just like sexuality, age, you know, race, everything, like just spaces that felt, it wasn't just like, oh, it's diverse because there's like a couple of these people there to spice it up or whatever. It was like really like mixed, you know.
And it's interesting because it's like I feel like that didn't even that wasn't even like determined based on who the owner of the space was. I feel like that shift really was just occurred through so many like variations. Somebody recently brought up to me the fact that you're buying tickets to parties versus people picking you in or letting you in through just waiting online at the door. I remember when I started going to Santos. I don't think there was like online ticketing for going into Santos and going to like Rich Medina and Q-Tip's party. I think they really just let people in at the door, and it kind of created more of a community, more of diversity. Do you think that is also like a part of? I mean, obviously it is, but I mean, is that something you thought about, or what could have?
Like door policies?
Not necessarily door policies, but I think
Ticket
online
costs?
ticketing. Yeah.
I mean, definitely like when I started going out, I mean there was hardly an internet, so there definitely wasn't online ticketing. But yeah, I'm sure that has an effect. I mean, I think the online ticketing itself maybe isn't the issue as much as it's a symptom of just the way, like, just other like the way that that the internet plays a role in all of it, the way that it's become just more mainstream in general, to like nightlife, just to go out to parties, to go to DJs. I mean, when that whole culture started, it was super underground, and it's steadily moved more and more overground since then, to the point where, like, I could be at what a few years ago was kind of like the spot for like good DJs and like a good vibe, and it's got the same people there that I would see like getting on with like the Wall Street stop on the subway. You know what I mean? Like it's like just like a bunch of bros and like not to like, I mean, whatever. I'm gonna obviously make like a total generalization here, but like just bros in like light blue button-down shirts. Like you would never see that in a club before, or if you did, it would be the absolute minority, and it could be like the majority now. Which is like, and it's not, in a way, there are like two ways of looking at it. One way is like, oh great, like these people are going to be influenced by all this good music and culture and whatever, but at the same time, their dominance in the space is kind of like taking away from other people, the people who actually created it or create the community or are more connected to it musically or culturally, feeling comfortable to be in the space. And so it's kind of like those people get pushed out, or they just self-selectively take themselves away, and it becomes just a less authentic, less vibrant, less rooted, connected space.
Yeah. I mean, it's so weird being like, and it's. I'm sorry, do you want to add anything there?
Go ahead,
I feel like I'm
go
like.
ahead.
Well, I guess I was just reflecting as you was talking about that. Somebody kind of brought up or gave me the phrase recently that the parties have been gentrified. And that's like parties like 718 Sessions or the Loft. Some people have said like Low Race Jamboree. Actually, that's pretty predominantly black still. But maybe even like Soul Summit. And I think, them also, like these particular DJs also placing themselves in like these largely white spaces have also had a huge impact on. And I'm not saying they sold out or anything like, but it definitely feels like there's more an incentive for them to be in certain spaces because the money is good, essentially. Like I know so many DJs are like spending over at Ace Hotel in Brooklyn. Sure, if they call me, I'd probably DJ there. Who couldn't use like $400 or $300 just for a night's work, just creating a vibe. But yeah, I don't know. It definitely feels it's harder to actually dance because so many people prefer to just kind of stand around, talk, and not really give room to that space. Ryan's not like that though. That's why we had so much fun going out.
I agree, yeah. I mean, it's true. Money is a huge part of it for both sides. For DJs wanting to make money playing gigs that they might not want to, or for people who buy tickets to events. That affects the community who happens to be in that space because they can afford the ticket cost.
Yeah, actually, interestingly enough, one of the one of the hopes for Alfreda Cinema, because it is about us. I would love to make sure that the community can still access our events regardless of their financial abilities. So, when we do get into our space, I'm definitely gonna have like a certain amount of tickets for people who live within like 3 miles of the facility, so that they can kind of make sure that they are able to utilize the space as well. Yeah, thanks. I mean, just having to think of ways of having to make sure that the community, yeah, for sure. Because, I mean, for me, what's the biggest issue, especially in terms of building my own film space, is the fact that Black art, Black music, isn't getting to Black communities. And like, I'm not gonna lie, like black people love going to the movie theater. Like, they be all up in Linden Boulevard, and then also when there's Linden Boulevard multiplex, in case y'all don't know. But I mean, I can't necessarily recommend going there, but it is very fun to be there. But also to just also add to the fact of music, not being able to see like DJs like Theo Parrish or Ron Trent, or I can list Joe Placel, like, Moody Band. And I'm sure that they would love to be, with the people who also help to inspire their music, because I definitely feel like a sort of a rhythm, when like we can all get together. But I don't know, like, I don't know if that's the move for them. Are you willing to take a lesser pay so that you can be closer to the community who can afford that price structure? I don't know if that's fair to ask you two, but is that something like you think would ever shift, the spectrum? Taking less money?
I mean,
would you take less money for a gig? So that you could play.
Take less money to play for a better crowd? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't really DJ for money, so I'm in a little bit of a different perspective. I mean, not that I don't get paid, and I prefer to be paid well, but if it's like a good DJ experience for me, where it's a good crowd, a good sound system, I can be creative, I don't really care about the money. Like, I find other ways to like earn my money through private gigs and stuff like that. I don't expect like any kind of club or listening room type of work in New York to like pay my bills,
Yeah,
which is my personal situation, and that frees me up to like to take things that don't necessarily pay well, but that are musically fulfilling. But yeah, so I mean, I think so, but I mean, I wouldn't like tell anyone else that they should do that. Everyone has like a different situation.
I'm just trying to get to a solution here.
Yeah.
Honestly, I guess I'm really just thinking out loud. That's kind of the first time I had that thought, truthfully.
Yeah.
But now that I think about it, I mean, there was such a wonderful experience this summer, and I actually did want to ask you too before I get off on my tangent, my party life tangent. But no, there was such a wonderful party this summer. I got to experience an incredible sound system by Sting International. He actually did a whole setup out in Coney Island, and it was fully free. Also, Low Rage Jamboree is a free party, and the family was out in full effect. And I gotta say, Sting sound system, the Thunder, it's probably the best commercial sound system I've ever heard in my life. I haven't gotten out that far, so you could get locked into New York, especially New York's nightlife, if you're not careful. I'm so spoiled here. Folks are come upstate, and I'm like, they'll be down here in a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it's something to think about, but hopefully, when you two are spinning at Alfreda Cinema, maybe you'll be more understanding if the sound system is tight. I guess, just to help help our audience also, those who don't necessarily go out, kind of get more of a vibe of or a feel for New York City nightlife. I mean, would you all love to sort of talk about some of the parties that really mean a lot to you, or some DJs in particular, or really maybe what's like inspiring you as far as like musically speaking, to kind of get a sense of who you are. Ryan, who's usually not this quiet.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good spaces, and I think certain DJs playing in those spaces bring out good parties. There's a lot of amazing sound systems.
What's your favorite venue? Like favorite venue in terms of and scale it as far as aesthetic, sound, has such great programming. Name names. Don't be afraid.
On the greatest night.
I mean, you could just speak as a dancer, as a music lover.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the place you wanna.
Public Records was a important space for me, like initially moving to New York and spending time there, because I experienced that sound system there, and when it first opened, I was there every weekend.
They had a great lineup.
A lot of good programming. The sound system is amazing. The space is nice. I think nowadays, not the club nowadays the crowd can vary whether or not it's where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you'd rather be elsewhere?
Maybe elsewhere. Or nowadays.
You can do like a who's on first segment about New York clubs.
Yeah.
Speaking of though, one of my favorite spaces, and I've mentioned them several times in like film introductions and stuff. Also a space that Mari loves, Cosmic Arts in Bushwick, it's in Bushwick, owned and operated by both, operated for sure by wonderful DJ J-Lock, as well as the owner Joe Clausel. I mean, that's definitely a venue and a space, black owned, that I feel like fully meets my like sound music quality criteria, and equally matching the folks who go there. I mean, I haven't met I might have met some horrible people, but only experienced the horribleness after the fact. But that's definitely one of my favorite places to hear music and experience
it
community.
feels like you're like coming home when you go there. To me, at least, I feel like it's like a homey vibe.
I feel like it's a man cavey vibe.
Okay, yeah.
It's like Joe Clausel's
Right.
man cave.
Ryan's coming home.
Well, it feels comfortable.
It's very warm. The incense is always
Incense
burning.
is helpful.
Music is excellent. Terrific sound system. But that's definitely my favorite location to hear music in New York, even though there's no dance floor.
Nighttime programming.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's pretty stiff. But hopefully eventually Alfreda Cinema will be everyone's favorite location to hear music and dance the night away. I mean, I still think that a lot of spaces that do wonderful programming kind of leave out the wellness factor, like, maybe Avant Gardner. You've never been there?
I don't know that I have.
Well, they do wonderful parties. There's Detroit Love with Paul Craig is usually there. Carl Cox. I mean, Black Coffee. They have definitely like the more of the international scale. But when you go to that venue, it's like it feels like being like cows brought into the slaughter.
Damn.
That's the feeling. That's the feeling, and it's insane that to build and construct a space that's so like, let's drain these people for as much as they have today.
So don't go there.
Yeah, I probably just made some enemies today.
I mean, I think what you're getting at is that like the ideal space doesn't really exist yet.
I think it
Or
did.
that it's not, doesn't necessarily have to be about a space, especially not like an established venue. I think at this point, I think there are a number of factors that have changed. Like, just to give a little bit like broader, since I happen to be older and have experienced like decades of this in New York. Not that I wish I went back to like the Paradise Garage days. I wasn't quite old enough for that, but
Every day I wish I could just spend one night there,
yeah.
just go through time. I would go there. But Larry will vanish.
But I have
Also, I shaded Larry. This is his death anniversary.
Oh, is it? Wow.
R.I.P. Larry. Happy ancestral birthday, Minnie. Amazing today. But you were saying Scribe. I apologize.
No, that's right. I was just saying that there are some like bigger kind of structural. I mean, there are many of them, and some of them I will definitely neglect to mention. But a couple of the things I've been thinking about while we were talking. One is just that, in the earlier days, and even in like my early days of going out in New York, it was a very, very local scene still. Like, all these like, historic clubs and residents that we talk about, they were historic because they played those clubs like every night. They played the same club, and they played there maybe every night, maybe 7 days a week, maybe 5, but it was, and they didn't really play anywhere else, and they were local. They were New Yorkers, you know what I mean? And New York wasn't known for bringing this DJ from Detroit, this DJ from, Chicago, this DJ from London. It just wasn't like that. Like, maybe occasionally someone would like pass through New York, and that would be like really unusual, but it was that just wasn't how it was, People just weren't touring that much. I think that focus on the headliner, the out of town like DJ, has really changed the New York DJ scene. Making it all about, like you said, like it's all about like the name recognition. It's all about,
the influence, the fan base, how many people they could bring into the space.
And if a DJ is known, if you know about a DJ from another city, and let's say this is like before you could listen to people's mixes everywhere online, maybe you knew them for another reason. Like maybe you knew them because they were a producer, or they were an actor, or they were like a chef. You know what I'm saying? Like, the New York DJs who were residents back in the day were known because people went to the parties and they knew them as DJs, and they knew that they were guaranteed to like make them have an amazing time in that club with that group of people. And so once you got this thing where it's like, oh, this person from there, this person, oh, they made that record, oh, they did this, like it became much more like about a kind of a celebrityism and like, who's known and like what's cool, and it just wasn't as much about the actual experience. Not to say that some of those people weren't amazing and it's not an amazing opportunity to hear them. I just think it permanently changed the kind of landscape of what club culture is in New York. So you can't just like, you can have an amazing venue that has a great sound system, but the crowd might suck. You might go there one night and hear a great DJ, another night and hear a shitty DJ. It's like there's no kind of consistency where people want to keep going to a place. And you keep going to a place, that's when you can kind of create that community we were talking about. And so I feel like now that happens more with these more like DIY, like even more underground parties that are more like invite only, or you just kind of have to know. I mean, everything we're talking about, let's just be clear, pretty much everything we're talking about is it's like on the underground side of things. Even like places like Public Records or nowadays or elsewhere or whatever, which everybody kind of knows about, it's still like, it's not like, it's not Las Vegas, you know what I mean? It's not like super, super commercial, but that like center has shifted a lot. So now what used to be what's kind of felt like underground culture is more like middle, you know, and
middle of the road.
that movement, I feel like it's hard to pick a place and say this is good because like 6 months from now that place is going to be totally whack because it got popular, the people that started going there are like not that connected to the culture or the music. They're just going there because they heard,
it's a scene.
you know, because they read in New York Magazine that it's the
Resident
cool place to
Advisor.
go or whatever.
Yeah.
No, not even Resident. You know what I'm saying? Like it's so
Time
it could
Out.
be
Time out.
any of those, you know.
Time Out actually did a post about 718 sessions as being one of the best
Great
parties.
party.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, Danny's been able to hold on to the community. Danny and Benny Soto, Danny Crivet, have been able to hold on to their community pretty tightly. Both that being such a welcoming, you know, not just for younger generations, but also it's older community, and hey, sorry, yeah. Oh, I'm saying, sure, yeah. We're just on IG Live, and if you want to say hello to the folks. hey, listen, I mean, I figured if somebody busted in, then they might as well say hello to the camera, you know.
IG Live
Yeah.
on
yeah.
Sony. Hi, IG Live people. Nice meeting you.
Hey,
I hope you have a nice new day.
thanks for letting us, you know, use the house. We appreciate it. Okay, cool. No, I guess I was just, you know, going back, just reflecting on 718 sessions and feeling so welcome and you know, really feeling like that party in particular is still kind of one of the last bastions of community, you know, as well as
Yeah.
shelter, I guess.
I mean, those are like kind of in a lineage that has pretty consistent. Like it's had a kind of a constant. There's always been something to pick up off where the thing before left off. I'm not really expressing this well, but what I'm trying to say is,
When there's an
you
end,
know,
there's a beginning.
it's like 718 sessions. I don't know how long there was in between Body and Soul and 718 sessions, but it's like there's been a certain core crowd, like the heads that used to go to Paradise Garage, and then they picked up some when like, you know,
The shelter, I
like
think,
it's like
opened.
Shelter
Yeah.
and Body and Soul, and there's been, you know, that there's like a die-hard group of like
People who grew up with the
Concepts.
music, really. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like there's consistently been like at least a party for them to go and like have the vibe that they want. I'm saying they because even though I've been to some of these parties, I wouldn't necessarily consider myself like part of the core, you know, following or whatever. But anyway, I'm just saying I think like because there's been some kind of consistency that it hasn't gotten lost. Like they've been able to like kind of carry on for decades, really. And 718 sessions is like the current kind of destination for that group of people. And then there are some of those people who go to other things, and some of those people who are like our friends or whatever. But that core audience has managed to maintain enough of a critical mass that like when other people go, they're not taking it over. They're like guests at this thing that people have been going to for a long time.
That's true. I do think that even when you know, new people kind of come into the like 718, they at first kind of feel a little like shy. That's also something that I like to be a part of, sort of warming. I love to be, you know, the needle drop person. I love to warm up the dance floor. Only because, and the way I like to start off in terms of that space is just by being like this explosive dancer to just move every limb and every which way, just because. I mean, also being somebody who was raised in the performing arts as far as taking dance lessons, modern ballet, tap. I mean, dance has always kind of been like at the core of like who I am, really. So I can't not dance the way that I was like taught to dance, you know.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you know, the fact that I think less people feel willing to move. It's partly also because there's no dance, there's no things. Like dance isn't taught in schools anymore. Also, music isn't necessarily a part of the core curriculum. I mean, liberal arts have just really been like wiped from the school system. Hey, hi Anna.
Hey.
Hey!
What took you so long?
I was working.
Oh, let's see that.
Working.
Well, I'm so glad you still have time to do it.
That's too bad.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's
You
like,
made it.
yeah, you
I
still
made
made
it.
it. You
Yeah.
still made it. That's wonderful. Hi, Anna, everybody. Welcome, Hyanna. Thank you for joining us. Hyanna and I actually have a party coming up on the 19th. We're literally the day after Ryan and I at anything, so hopefully you all can come out to that as well. No, I didn't set this up intentionally to promote these parties. It just happened that way. It just happened that way. But that's also going to be an all vinyl session, so hopefully you all can come out. But thanks for joining us, Hyanna. We were just actually talking about some of the parties and venues and spaces that we love and really still have a sense of community. Also, as a fellow dancer, you know.
I know. Yeah, there are. I'm not sure what you guys talked about. I heard you talking a little bit about 718. I don't know if that means 718 at Good Room or at Knockdown or at Santos.
So it changes.
Or wherever it has been over the years, but it's complicated. It's complicated.
That's for sure. Well, what's our time now?
What time is it? It's like 9, almost. 8:56.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure we're not using up too much IG live time. And I still have time to, we still have time to play some records. Yeah, I want to make sure. But at least you got to poke your head in. Alright, well,
Alfreda though?
I was just gonna close this out.
Yeah.
Just also mentioning that, you know, tonight's conversation is brought to you largely in part of hoping to raise funding for our current GoFundMe campaign. We are working towards an $85,000 goal. And November is definitely a wonderful time to help support, you know, small businesses, startups like Alfreda Cinema. And tonight's conversation is actually just a part of what the kind of programming that we would hope to bring in our space when we do eventually get to open our doors. So help us, you know, show us some love just by supporting our GoFundMe. Links are all in my bio. And, you know, thank you all. We're going to transition to some music now because I'm sure you're tired of hearing this topic. Thank you.
They always talking about how we young people never try to do nothing but use dope and kill each other up in the streets. Then when we try to do something the way they say it's supposed to be done, they mess with us and try to shut us down. Gonna kick your ass.
Well, the only way you can get it is to get up off of your asses and take it back.